Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you for staying tuned with us. We just had a couple of technical difficulties getting started today, but this week we're going over T-RackS 5 and we're going to be talking specifically about mid-side processing and left and right processing. Now, most of you might not know exactly what that is, so we're going to start with the beginner course and trying to tell you when you'd use it, when you want to really reach for this tool. It's not something you always want to reach for, but if you didn't know about it, it's something that you might be missing out on. So let's go ahead and we're going to dive right into T-RackS. And make sure you guys make an IK Multimedia username right now. That's how you're going to enter to do the giveaway at the very end of the episode. And make sure you like and subscribe. We do giveaways every week. IK Tech Talks is live every Tuesday at 4 p.m. on YouTube and on Facebook. So let's jump right in here. Okay, guys, so you can see my screen here. And I have a pretty basic setup. I don't have too much going on. It's a little bit of a switch up from our last couple of sessions. We've done some blues, we've done some rock, we've done some metal. This week we're going to focus a little bit more on some electronic music. I'm going to play back the track for you in just a moment, but before we do that, I want to, as always, go through our audio MIDI setup. Now, if you're not familiar with the audio MIDI setup in your DAW, you really should be. This is very important. Now, when you're mixing and you're mastering, you don't need a low buffer size because you're not worried about latency. A buffer size has to do with the audio going into your computer and coming out and the delay in between the two. So for mixing, we're going to crank our buffer all the way up. We don't need it low. I know some people like to crank this guy down when they're mixing. When you have a powerful machine, that's possible. But today, I'm sticking to 2048 because even though my machine is a beast, I'm doing a lot. So I want to make sure I leave myself as much room as possible, and I'm not worrying about mixing down anything. I'm leaving myself a good amount of room. So let's check out this mix. And guys, don't forget, we're giving away T-RackS at the very end of this episode. I'm going to play this back, and then we're going to talk about mid-side processing. I'm going to let a couple more people jump in here, and make sure while this plays back, you go ahead and you like and subscribe. Okay, cool. So we have our mix here, and I'm going to go over a couple of things. Let's go ahead and we'll start just taking a look at what mid-side is. I'm just going to open one of the modules I have here. It's not doing too much, but you're going to notice on all your T-RackS modules, you have this LR and you have this MS section right here, which is really cool. And the LR is going to mean left and right side processing. So let's say you have a bus of guitars and you wanted to just make the right side just a little bit brighter, but you didn't want to have two different EQs to do that. Or let's say you were sent some stems and you don't have the option to do that. That's where this comes in very handy. So you want to switch between left and right, and you're going to see my knobs will change for each one of these settings. Now this was a bus EQ right here, which was just bringing up a little bit of 100 hertz on my left side and bringing it down on my right side, leaving some space on one side of the spectrum. Now, if we go ahead and we take a look at one of these other instruments, you could see specifically one of the reasons we would do this. Now, if you're not familiar with what mid-side is, I'm going to show you that right here. Now, when you're processing mid side, it's just as it seems. You have mid right in the center, and then you have your sides on the outside of the spectrum. Now, this does go very in depth, and there's some great tutorials online and some great in-depth stuff on this, but we're just going to go over the basics. So essentially, you have your middle and you have your sides. So for this track that I was given, my snare has a lot of reverb, and it's almost more in the sides than it is in the center. So what I'm going to do is kind of collapse that stereo image by just pushing into the compressor in the middle a little bit harder than I would on the sides. Now let's take a listen to what it sounds like with and without that option on there. So I'm going to completely bypass this so you can hear how it really, it's a very wide snare, very open. Now, you might think when it's playing on its own, you might prefer the huge stereo image because stereo always sounds really good on its own. But when you throw it into a mix, I want my snare dead center. I don't necessarily want my snare on the sides. Once it starts bleeding into the sides, it starts washing out your mix. You start losing that center that you really want. And this is mainly focused on the kick and the snare. So that's what I want in the center. So let's go ahead and listen to that in the mix with it on and with it off. So this is off. Now you can hear how it brings it out a little bit in the mix, but it also dulls down the sides and it brings it some focus, and that's the most important part. That's why I use this technique here. Now, if you wanted to widen something, you could do essentially the opposite, but there are other tools to use for that, and that's one thing I really want to push about mid-side is that you don't always want to reach for it. It's a great tool when you have it, but if you wanted to make something wider, there are other tools like the quad imager that we have in T-RackS, which is really easy to do that. Always reach for the tool that's designed for what you're doing. It's cool when you can reach for other things and start making unique sounds. I just wanted to make sure I pushed that out there because once people use mid-side wrong, you can get some phase issues, you can do things incorrectly, but it's a great tool once you start messing with it. And if you've never heard it before, it's going to blow you away once you listen on speakers. If you're on headphones, you might not exactly hear exactly what I'm talking about here. And if you're on like an iPhone speaker, it might be even more difficult to hear the nuances that I'm presenting. Thank you, Ray. I see that you use it as a stereo imaging tool. And I see a great question about linear phase. I wouldn't necessarily relate that to stereo imaging with the video today, but linear phase is actually really cool. Essentially, you have an EQ that's not going to mess with your phase at all from the entire spectrum. That's a whole other topic, something really to look up. Also, if you want to read more on mid-side, check out the user manual. There's a couple of different things that I'll show you. But yeah, so I'm going to do the same thing with my kick here, and I'm going to push it in the center. Notice my side here has a little bit less output, but I'm still compressing it. But my mid is pushed really hard. Now, this kick was very quiet when it was handed to me, so I'm going to play it back without anything on it just to show you. And it's soloed, remember that. So you can hear that. You can really hear how it's pushing really hard. And I normally don't like to add volume. A lot of people like to gain stage and prevent or gain level match what's going into the compressor and what's coming out of it. But I needed a little bit more level. And I kind of wanted to get that out of the 1176 because of the way that it warms up the signal as opposed to just crank up the clip gain. Now let's listen to it in the mix and hear how it's a little bit behind and it's not too focused until I turn this on. That's actually a very good point that my mod mentioned. If you're not going for more volume, that's when issues start to arise. If you're trying to make the sound better, louder isn't better. I like to first do subtractive EQ, and then I'll compress my signal because I've ripped everything out that I don't want, and then I compress it a little bit. I don't really want to mess with the level mostly, but this track I had to. It was too quiet. It wasn't sitting where I wanted to, and normally you can turn all the other tracks down, but I've turned them down quite a bit, and I was losing a little bit of action that I wanted to. Now, you can see here, you can see my meter is slamming. This is not a typical track that I would do this on, but let's go ahead and we'll hear just our drums soloed. And don't forget, guys, we're giving away T-RackS 5 at the very end of this episode. You guys will be able to try all this stuff out on your own. Remember, this is an introductory lesson. This is for you guys who've never really messed with mid-side and you're trying to get into it, or you never noticed that those buttons were even there, and you're just now seeing what you can do with them. So let's go ahead. I'm going to play just the drums here. And thank you guys all for tuning in. Let's go ahead and play that back. Just the drums. So you can hear there's a little bit of insane reverb going on, and I've kind of tried to duck that down with my mid-side technique. Now, one of the things with the snare that I was saying is all the reverb kind of lives in the sides because it's a mono instrument. It was in the center. I know that because I heard it before, but they processed it with reverb, which added in a stereo field, and I'm trying to take that away a little bit, and that's what I'm doing here. And I'm also doing that with the EQ. So I have my equal here, and notice my mid. If I take too much out of my center, my mid, you're going to hear my instrument affected way too much, and you don't want your snare to completely disappear. Let's hear how it sounds. You see, it sucks out like a lot, and I didn't really want to do that. Check out, if I can completely remove the sides, and I don't lose that much because the snare, I'm not really looking for the sides that much. I'm mainly looking for the center. Now, you don't want to do too much to the sides, and that's one thing I tried to mention earlier. Again, you can mess with phase and a bunch of stuff like that. So I just did a little subtle. Once you hear it, roll it back a little bit. You just want to make sure you hear it and then dial it back. You don't really want to go too crazy with it. Now, what instrument would you normally reach for mid-side editing? Normally, if I'm in an EDM track like this one, I want the kick and the snare to sit in the center. So I'm going to make sure that I use maybe a little bit of mid-side processing to get that center where I want it to. Sometimes it can also be very useful to use mid-side on EQs to open stuff up for the vocals. Let's say you really like how your guitar is sitting, you really like how the entire mix is sitting, but your vocals are just being blasted by every other frequency in your mix. You can go and take the mid and then EQ just the mid, and then open up some room for your vocals without losing out with all your other instruments on the sides. So that's actually a really cool thing to do. My mod mentioned to me earlier today that one really awesome thing to do, and this is more of a mastering side thing, is where you'll open up the chorus and you'll make it wider. And then when you get to the verse, you'll collapse it and make it a little bit more mono. So it's an interesting technique to add a little bit of flavor to the track when it might not necessarily be moving that much. There might not be too much going on. Really cool thing to do. To participate, all you need to do is stay to the very end and answer a simple question. We're just going to ask you, it's going to be a surprise, but we need your IK username at the very end. So if you guys don't have an IK username, go ahead and create one right now. We'll wait for you at the end of the video. We're going to give away right at, let's say, 4:35. T-RackS 5 is going to be in one of your guys' hands. So that's when I'm going to ask the question. Make sure you stick around until then. So for those of you who are still here listening to me talk about adding clarity and making room in a mix, I want to show you guys my instruments here. Here I can see one good thing. Good question from my mod here. Can you teach a processing technique to add some more warmth to the bass drum? Okay, interesting. I can go over that in just a little bit. Let's go over that when we're going through the giveaway. I'm going to talk about some saturation, how that can really add to your low end, especially when you're listening on smaller speakers, because smaller speakers don't have quite the frequency range, and sometimes they miss out on things. So when you saturate the frequencies and you add some more harmonics in, it gives you a little bit more depth where you might not have had it before. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's take a listen to, and check out my piano here. I have a quad imager on here. Now, I said you don't always reach for mid-side when you don't have to. But let's listen to just my instruments here. You can see what's going on. So you can see, even though I have spread out like one of the most insane presets in this thing, it's not really pushing it too wide. I mean, unless you're on some speakers with a good stereo field. If you guys are on headphones, you might not even hear too big of a difference. But essentially what I wanted to do was have my piano nice and big. It's going to mainly be living in my left and right, and I'm going to leave my center for my kick and my snare. So you can see here, I'm just pretty much making it wider so I can leave the center alone for the rest of my for my kick and my snare. Now on my vocal track, let's see, I didn't do too much here, but I did some mid-side processing because there was so much reverb on this thing again. Now you can see my sides, I cut out some. Now these aren't the most insane vocals, this isn't the most optimal performance, but these are some laid back ambient vocals in the background. So check out what this EQ does. I'm going to play it back with nothing on it first. Now, it depends on what genres you're into, whether or not you like that whole ambient vocal sound in the background. I like it to add a little bit more of a vibe to the music in the background. It's not really a prominent feature in the track. But what this did was suck out some of what was protruding into my mids, which was from the sides, which was from my reverb. So a lot of the bass buildup from my reverb is what I'm cutting out here on the sides. In the mid, I didn't even touch it. I just wanted to cut out some of that muddiness from the sides, which happens to be that reverb. So let's try that. See, it's not doing too much, but it's doing exactly what I want it to. And now I'm running that into my compressor. Like I said, I remove what I want, and then I'm going to compress. You can always do it the other way around. You can get some really unique stuff by pumping certain frequencies into compressors, but that's not what I'm focusing on today. We're doing some surgical kind of stuff instead. So you have mid-side here, and when you select mid-side or LR on the Dynamo, which is a very mute compressor, which is really cool for vocals and drums and very, very dynamic stuff to keep it under control, I'm kind of making my input and threshold kind of touch each other. This is going to be my mid or my left side, and this is going to be my sides. So I want less on the sides and more in the mid, essentially, is what I'm going for. I want my vocals to mainly live in the center, maybe a little bit on the sides, but the sides are going to be for my other instruments and for my, you see I have a pad here. I have other things that have the space in the sides. So let's play it from where there's the most. Now, another thing I want to mention just before we do this giveaway is this pad here. This pad does not sound the greatest on its own, and this is a very important thing, is soloing can be dangerous when you're mixing. You want to make sure if you are soloing, it's for a purpose. If you're soloing to find a certain frequency that you can't quite hear because the mix is getting in the way, that's fine. But if you're soloing to make an instrument sound as good as it can on its own, and then you unsolo it, it'll suddenly clash with the rest of the mix because you need to account for every other instrument. So watch out when you're soloing, and this is one of the most important things in the mix, because this guy doesn't sound that pleasant on his own, but he's got these frequencies that sticks out in the mix because it's not necessarily something that's coming from my other instruments. Now, it doesn't sound great on its own, but if I were to cut these frequencies, it wouldn't stand in the mix. So let's play just the pad. So you can see it's kind of like dancing around the sides here. Now let's play with the full mix, and you're really going to hear that. That's something you might not even have noticed the first time you heard the track. So you can really hear how it's kind of pushing around the sides, and it's frequencies that aren't necessarily already in the mix. So it's something that stands out and kind of gives me more or less empty space in the mix. And it's not bad space because it's not clashing, it's not masking, it's just kind of complementing, and that's what I'm looking for. So that's essentially the kind of tools that I'll be using when I'm trying to mess with mid, side, or left and right kind of processing. Let's see. Normally, I will not reach for left and right for the EQ because I'll have my own tracks. But again, if you only have a stem and you can only process the one track, unless you're going to split it to mono and then process them on their own. If you want to keep it simple, you can use one EQ and kind of mess with it from there. It's really good to add some variance between the left and the right. I was doing that with another track earlier where the pan for the hi-hat was spinning around, but when it got to the right speaker, it was brighter. When it got to the left speaker, it was darker. When something is darker, it sounds like it's farther away. When something's brighter, it sounds like it's more up close. So that was my concept there, is that it's really living on this side, but when it spins, you can hear it kind of disappear into the background, which is interesting. These are all loop instruments. A lot of this stuff is out of Sample Tank. I can't say exactly what everything is from. This was passed over to me. Let's see. I see a bunch of great questions. You guys keep bringing them in. We're giving away T-RackS 5, or I'm going to be asking a question to give away T-RackS 5 in just a minute. Completely free to enter. Right now, I see a really good question about sidechain compression. That's not something that's on the plate for T-RackS compressors at the moment, but definitely something to keep an eye out for. If you aren't tuned into our newsletter, that's something that'll keep you up to date on all those latest updates and stuff like that. Especially if you aren't on our newsletter, then you might not know that today is the last day for our promotion. Let's see, what is it called? It is up to 50% off select T-RackS modules. That's T-RackS Max, Sunset Studio, Reverb, and the tape machines. Really great modules, up to 50% off. This is the last day, so jump in. Link in the description. You can go and check it out now, right before we do this giveaway here. So I do see one good question about the one. Ooh, it looks like my mod might have taken that over, but I love the one processor. It is in T-RackS 5. That's going to be one of that's probably the best thing I would say is in T-RackS 5 because that's my favorite. I love throwing that on at the end of the mix. I actually didn't even use it on this one. This is one of the first tracks I haven't thrown it on. It kind of pulls everything together, and one of my favorite guys in the industry, Tom Lord-Alge, uses it as just like a prep for his artists to hear what it's going to sound like when mastering's done. You know, he works with professional mastering engineers, and not everybody has that benefit. So that one little step for him could be the final process for a lot of people. And for me, it ties everything together. I'm not going to be sending my stuff to a mastering engineer, so this gets my job done for me. And it makes it sound great across all platforms, depending on if you use it the right way. And if you're really trying to do the car test, you have Lursen Mastering Console. I would suggest using Lursen Mastering Console over the one if you're focused on mastering. If you're mixing, mastering, and doing a lot of stuff in the box, check out the one. It's a great module. Let's see. Do I have a chance? You can use Google Translate. We'll stick with you there. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for staying with us so far. We're just going to be asking something simple. Or let's go ahead and we'll ask the question now. So when you guys are ready, I want you guys to throw your answer in the chat box, and I need your IK username at the very end. If I don't have your username, I can't give you the software. So make sure to throw that in there for us. The question is, what is your favorite T-RackS 5 module? Now, you have to use the IK name. So if you're not familiar, jump on the site, and you can just look through the modules. I'd want to hear the IK name. So that's going to be, for example, we have our quad image right here. This is going to be the T-RackS quad imager. So make sure you call it whatever the T-RackS module is. If you like the tape machine, say tape machine 80. Give us some specifics. But throw your answer in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to mess around with that saturation on the kick drum and see what we could do here with the Saturator X. definitely, guys, throw all your answers in. We're going to let it go for a little while. And don't forget, if you miss your chance to win this week, you can like and subscribe the video. We do this every day live. 5 p.m. on Instagram and 4 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook. We have a schedule on our website. Check out the links in the description. And let's check out this kick drum. Let those answers pour in, guys. And if you have any other questions you'd like to ask, now's the time. This is going to be the QA. We're going to leave this open. And I'm going to be picking a winner at, let's say, 4:45. And then that's it. So that's going to be when we announce the winner for T-RackS 5. And that's going to be a completely free software program just for watching this awesome video and just for learning something about the processor you're about to win. So let's check out our kick drum here. Now, it already sounds a little bit saturated to me, but since it was asked, let's jump in. We're going to go to our list of IK plugins, and let's grab our Saturator X. If you haven't messed with the Saturator X, it's a really cool tool. Let's saturate it after we compress it. You could do it either way. You get some unique sounds if you do it reversed. But guys, don't forget, throw your answer in the chat box. We want to hear your favorite T-RackS 5 module followed by your IK username. So this is the Saturator X. Now you notice there are a bunch of different saturation modes, and essentially these guys are linked. You can unlink them here. And you notice there is some mid-side processing. So if I wanted to say take my mid and then saturate just my mid, I can. If I want to saturate just my sides, I can. Now let's focus just on the middle. And let's go through all these modes and just give a little bit of saturation. You can see these are, I believe, master tape, so it's going to be a little bit more clean of a saturation, but these are going to be the original tapes, and we're going to get some cool ones here. Now, I went through all those because I love the steel and I love the iron, because there's something you probably wouldn't necessarily have to saturate your signal in most cases. You might have a lot of tape saturators. You might have some Class A saturation somewhere else, push-pull, stuff like that, solid state. But this right here, the steel, I love it. So let's play that, and let's see how it fits in the mix. So you can hear how I've pretty much just kind of given a little bit more life to that kick drum, and you might not necessarily hear it in your listening environment, but one of the best parts is about smaller speakers. This will really help your low range, because they might not necessarily have 60 hertz in their speakers. So when you saturate, you start widening where your low frequencies live, and by doing that, you're allowing smaller speakers to sound like you're listening on your bigger setup. Of course, it'll never sound the same, but that kind of gives you a little bit more of a life when you're trying to translate against a bunch of different environments. Now, I see some great answers here. I love the white and the British channels. Those are some of my favorite. Those are, I believe, SSLs. Ooh, the white 2A, that's another great one. The white 2A, I believe, is what is it? Is a tube optical, I believe. That's a great one. I like to use it when I don't want to color my signal too much, but I really want to compress it and maybe add a little bit of warmth to it. If you want to add some grit to it, you want to use like an FET style compressor like the Black 76. That's a great one to add a little bit more aggression to your sound. This is going to be a nice, easy, smooth kind of compression, at least for me. We also have another opto compressor, which is really cool to hear the differences between them. If you're looking, opto compression is very smooth, round, something I normally reach for, say, for a vocal or a clean guitar. If I'm going for a distorted bass guitar or some distorted guitars, I'm reaching for the 1176, maybe something a little bit more brutal. For my snare here, normally if I wanted to get some smack, I love the bus compressor. That's one of the best ones for me. And the precision comp limiter, because if you guys aren't familiar with this guy, he is a beast. He will add a nice smack to your signal. And you notice mid, side, left, right as well. Or you can link all those controls together. So if you're not too familiar with mid, side just yet and you want to link everything, it's still there. And remember, if you have huge displays, you can always just resize and make it that much easier for yourself. So we're coming up here 5 minutes. We're going to be giving away T-RackS 5. So if you have not given us your answer, make sure you throw in the chat box. We want to hear your favorite T-RackS 5 module, and we want to see your IK username at the very end of that. And make sure you guys, if you haven't liked and subscribed already, make sure to do so. We do this every Tuesday. This is Tech Talks Live. And if you're not familiar with all of our different promotions right now, check the link in the description. We have a VI group buy going on right now, which we just hit another tier, and it's buy one get three free, which is an insane deal. But I'm seeing some great questions. I see somebody asking about the 8-track recorder and Amplitude. We could definitely go over that. We have some other tech talks about the iRig Stomp.io, how to use that with Amplitude, how it integrates. We've done one on the AXIO, the AXIO Solo, which if you guys haven't messed with these guys yet or haven't seen them before, it's got a variable impedance input for the instrument, which allows you pretty much to plug in any kind of guitar and master your tone shaping before you get to the EQs or anything crazy like that. It goes from 1 mega ohm to 2.2 kilo ohms for you tech nerds out there. I'm sure you guys know ohmage really makes difference. Resistance is a big thing in audio signal, and older vintage gear might use a 2.2 kilohertz or around there, so you can plug in your stomp pedals, not worry about not being matched on the impedance and ruining your signal about that. You don't need to throw T-RackS in the name, but we want to use the T-RackS, the IK name. So make sure you just don't use the original model's name. Don't give us the SSL channel strip. I just want to hear the white channel, the British channel. Show us what you know about T-RackS, and we want to engage with you guys here. Oh, good question. Does IK plan a distressor? You'll have to stay tuned to the newsletter. That's one of my favorite compressors ever, the distressor. I've mainly used them in hardware. I've used a couple software ones, but that's a good one, especially for drums. That's a really awesome module. You can see this full list here. If you do win T-RackS 5 today, you're going to be able to use all these single modules, or you can even use the suite. And the suite is pretty awesome. The suite is going to be a way for you to load different chains. And we actually have a bunch of different presets from some famous engineers and mastering engineers. And you're going to be able to load all of those right here. You have all of your legacy presets. So if you've ever owned T-RackS, if you're a T-RackS 3 guy or a T-RackS 4 guy, you can upgrade to T-RackS 5 completely free. It's no problem. And if you do have T-RackS 4 or T-RackS 3, this is a perfect chance to win T-RackS 5 and just get into the new world of T-RackS without even having to throw any extra funds down, because that just makes it that much better, right? But yeah. Thank you, CBDS. T-RackS does have so many good modules, and it's insane. The guys, our guys over here, or who model this stuff, really know what they're doing, and they're all absorbed in music, so all this stuff is meant to be as musical as possible. There's a lot of emulations about a lot of different gear, and you're going to see a lot of different dissections online about it. Essentially, if it sounds good, it is good, right? But don't take my word for it. All the stuff can be tried out before you buy it for a nice, decent amount of time. You can use it on your mixes without any issues at all. You will get a white noise burst after the demo is done, but until then, you can use them completely free. We have a whole tech talk on how to demo our stuff, and it just got that much easier with the IK Product Manager. Just download the Product Manager, and you're going to have a demo button right there. Really cool. For the British versus the white, that's a really hard one. It depends on what I'm going for. If I'm going for like that UK kind of vibe, and that's a hard kind of timbre to explain, I guess more crunchy style, just that Brit sound that you're looking for, that's when I reach for the British channel. Unfortunately, that doesn't help too much, but I do like the white channel for a more modern sound. It's a lot more, I don't want to say transparent, but much more, modern's the best word for it. Let's just go with that. I do love them both on drums, though. They sound great on drums. The gate on there is very powerful. The expander, if you don't know what an expander is, check it out, especially if you know what compression is and you don't know what an expander is. That is an insanely cool tool. I pulled up T-RackS Sunset Sound here because I did want to show you guys something cool for any of you guys who do jump into the deal. I had a user ask me this the other day. They were asking, can you change the different places where you recorded in Sunset Studio Reverb? And this explains all of the different areas that you're recording in. Studio 2, this gives you an explanation how it's the smallest chamber, which will help you make your decision on what you need. This also will tell you the characteristics of the sound chamber can be heard on classics like Led Zeppelin 2 and Van Halen 2. So this will help you kind of pick where you're going. And then, of course, you have different options for the phase. In the live rooms, you have the different positions. If you're not familiar with Sunset Sound, definitely check it out. That's a great one. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We're about to do the giveaway. Somebody is about to win T-RackS 5. And if you guys didn't win, make sure you guys like and subscribe. You're going to win one of these weeks. Oh, cool. So our winner today, which is pretty awesome of a choice, which is the Black 76, one of my favorite modules. You've heard me kind of fanboy over it a little bit. It is Root Audio. Thank you so much, and congratulations, Root Audio. You are the winner. You just won yourself T-RackS 5. That will be added to your account shortly. You don't have to do anything. Just keep an eye out on the IK Product Manager or your user area under My Products for when that gets added. But thank you guys all for tuning in. We're really happy to be able to share some knowledge with you guys and for you guys to want to tune in and engage with us. Make sure you guys comment any ideas for other videos that you'd love to see. That Amplitude 8-track recorder was a great example. We're here to do this for you guys, and we want to give you guys all the kind of information that you need to make the music that you want and the music that everybody wants to hear. So definitely stick with us through these weeks. While you're stuck at home, we have a bunch of cool stuff going on. So check out the live schedule on our website and all of the great promotions in the description. And thank you guys all for tuning in again. You guys make it all worth it, and have a great week, guys.